Hello and howdy everyone. This year my Halloween film was Nosferatu, a symphony of horror. This is, I believe, the third restoration project I've seen from Kino Films, or maybe not Kino Films, but Kino Studios. They're I guess a remarkable restoration house, preservation house, dedicated to restoring the great works of cinema. The first was probably over a year ago. I saw Metropolis that was fully restored. Then recently this year I saw Fritz Lang's M, which was again fully restored. Gorgeous. Both of those films were gorgeous. This is my third experience with them. They have restored 1922 Nosferatu, which I believe is the oldest film I've seen, at least in recent memory. I know that Birth of a Nation is older than that, and I've seen Birth of a Nation, I'm pretty sure. Or I know I've seen it, but I'm pretty sure it's older than that. But 1922, that's old, man. And I think it's one of the oldest films I've seen. This is the second time I've seen Nosferatu from start to finish. The first time was in college, in film class, which again I saw a different version. This version I watched on Halloween was the fully restored director's cut. It runs longer than any other previous cut. At the start of all of their restoration projects, they start out telling the history of the film, what happened to the negatives, and what you're about to watch, and basically how they, collected what you're about to watch. To the best of my recollection, this print was basically in its current form as of 2006. They said that there's a Blu-ray release of this restored version. There was a little bit more. I can't remember what they said. There was basically it was the 2006 fully restored version with something else added. I can't remember what else it was. Something that the family said that Murnau wanted in. The director, the filmmaker, is F.W. Monroe. I'm not even sure I'm saying his name right. He's German, obviously. It's a German film. It would, boy, those Germans were just at the forefront of cinema. I think this would fall into the category of German expressionist film, along with Metropolis and Fritz Lang. But again, I think both. Fritz Lang did both those films. What am I talking about? He did Metropolis and M. So I think Fritz Lang really was following in Murnau's footsteps. Again, this is the second time I've seen the film. I guess the first time I've seen the fully restored. This is also remastered in 4K. It was absolutely gorgeous. Even for the film being from 1922, sometimes it just looked amazingly crisp. Other times it did look very worn. They did their best to restore it to the director's intended version. So some of the negative or film that had been lost or misplaced for several years, didn't look as good. But certainly the iconic scenes that you can think of when you picture Nosferatu, they just look amazing. It's just like almost bizarre how something so old can look so new and fresh and sharp. It's almost disorientating in a way. This also, as a note, had a live piano and organ accompaniment. I've never seen that before. Again, this is a silent film with title cards. The title cards are rewritten with a new translation in English. The rest of the film is silent. Back in the day, they would play silent movies and they'd pay a piano player to sit there and play the piano or the organ during the film. That's exactly what I experienced for this. And it was great. I loved it. The film got a round of applause, and then after the credits rolled, the organist, the pianist, got a near standing ovation. It was, I mean, non-stop music for over 90 minutes. And I mean, I honestly, sometimes I was always trying to watch the film, but sometimes I'd try and steal a peek when it was dark at what he was doing and how was he playing so constantly. Turns out he did like a little speech after the film, just making it up as he goes along. So I don't know if Murnau had a set score. There was a set score in the credits of the film, and I'm sure that it matched up with what he was playing. But in the certain segments where there was no notes to play certain music for certain scenes, he was just making it up, just playing what he wanted, and it just sounded fantastic. As a kind of a funny note, the organist resembled somewhat Nosferatu. So I think he was just a big fan who's done this a couple times. The film itself is iconic. It's one of the oldest, most important films ever made. Nothing like it. There was nothing like it before it. It's not really. It's credited as being the first vampire movie. The first monster movie, first vampire movie. I want to call it like the first horror film. I think I would be wrong in that. I believe general consensus for the first horror film is The Cabinet of Dr. Cagliari. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. Which is also a German expressionist film. Basically, many of our current genres of film started in Germany, in the 20s and 30s. Here, it's just, again, so many people have copied it. So many images are part of the cinematic lexicon. It's just part of vocabulary. There's a fantastic film, I believe, called Shadow of the Vampire. I can't remember. Willem Dafoe plays Max Schreck. Max Schreck plays Nosferatu. You could almost argue he was the first method actor. He really wanted to get into this character. He became a vampire, and I mean this. Like, the actor, Max Schreck, became a vampire, slept in a coffin, slept in dirt. If you believe the legends, even ate live animals, and even more, if you want to believe the legends, had something to do with the death of women. You don't know. Obviously he was an artist before you even knew what an artist was in that capacity. He's just an actor. He's just an actor. He's great here. Again, he's the basis, I believe, for all other vampires to follow. His look is iconic. His movement is iconic. It's an iconic film. I guess if I haven't said it, I haven't. I have to give it a 10. I just kept on watching it, and in amazement about how old the film was. That's what just kept on getting me, is the film's almost going on 100 years old, and yet it feels fresh, looks great, moves quickly, still somewhat scary, yes, cheesy, yes, it features, with the exception of, Max Schreck, kind of ancient acting techniques. This is silent film, so it's like there's still playing to that old stage rule of playing to the back row. They haven't, they're not playing to the lens, they're playing to that back row. So the expressions are huge. It's almost cartoonish in a way, but yet that's the style of the time. So you can't really, hold it against it because it didn't exist prior to. So that's what just kept on getting me. It was just like, I can't believe how good this is. And then I would follow up, I can't believe how good this is, with I can't believe how old this is. Again, going on damn near 100 years old, and still relevant today. There was some colorization, again, in the preceding paragraph to introduce the film. It said that, again, this is restored to Murnau's intention, that what's been colorized, he wanted colorized. It's not like Technicolor. It's like everything in this scene is going to be green. Everything in this scene is going to be pink. Everything in this scene is going to be blue. It's like they put a filter over the projection lens to just show that scene in, now this is back in the day, now it's done obviously digitally, but they hold up like a filter over the lens so that everything is that color for that scene. That remained true here. Sometimes it's pure black and white. Other times, it was, again, pink or green, blue, a filtered color, again, to the director's intent. The translation was great, very goth. I mean, this movie is very goth. I think a lot of goth, people lift from this movie. The paragraphs are, the title cards, very well written, very dramatic, very intense. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, they're just so beautifully written, so beautifully worded that it just paints this picture in your mind. It's like extra descriptive. There's like some word that means super descriptive, and I'm not thinking of it right now. But anyway, it's that. And so it was beautifully written, and like it made you, when you read it, it made you terrified of the vampire, even just by reading. Another thing that's important is a lot of the action of this film we don't see. A lot of this, the action takes place while you read it. You read about countless deaths. You read about the plague. And the plague is not what we think of as a plague. I think that's interesting about how it also plays with history. That, to this today, currently, we know the Black Plague. And we know that it killed, so many people. But in the film, the Black Plague is not rats spreading disease. It's Nosferatu killing people. And I really found that to be interesting. It played on history. It played on the fears of the time. Again, this film was released in the early 1920s. The film itself takes place in, I believe, the 1860s, if I remember correctly, which is very interesting to me. Hold on just one second. So we have Murnau in the 1920s making, societal commentary on previous generations, which I found fascinating as well. And then playing with that fear and saying, no, it wasn't disease, it was this monster. And I thought that was, pretty cool once I started to think about it. But we never get to see Nosferatu kill anyone. We don't get to see Dracula be Dracula. Except for, save for the end, also the iconic ending of the film. But we read, all of the action takes place through, I don't know if exposition would be the correct word, but through reading the title cards is where all of the action takes place. And then we get to see, the emotional. And when I say action, I'm talking about, modern day horror film, vampire movie action. People getting ripped apart, drinking blood, whatever. That's all implied. You're not going to show that to a 1920s audience when, people flip out when a train comes at them. It was just a pleasure. It was just a great time at the theater with the live music and just the beautiful pictures. Again, even though it's almost 100 years, it's exactly why you go to the movies. It's exactly why you go to the movies. I don't really know what else to say. I don't really know what else to say other than it was, it's one of the most important films of all time for a reason, and it was fantastic to see on the big screen with that beautiful music, loud, beautiful music with that sharp, crisp image. It just, again, it was just like, wow. Felt incredibly fresh and exciting. It was exciting. And that's odd to say something that's almost 100 years old, let alone a silent film. I guess I'm pretty much done. I really can't think of much more to praise about the film. So I think I'll call it a day there. So that's F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu, a symphony of horror. And it's an iconic piece of cinema history that I cannot help but give a 10. Thanks much.